Policy Group, an alliance of voluntary inter-community sector women's groups, organised a march in Belfast to highlight the funding crisis in the women's sector in Northern Ireland. Women were asked to come out and march against the loss of jobs and vital services within the women's sector. They planned to walk to the DSD Voluntary Inter-Community Unit's Gasworks office, where marchers would hand over a letter voicing their concerns. I joined them at Havalock House on the Ormeau Rd, the starting point for the march.
Have a chat with us about why you're here today.
We have to support the women's centres because it's good. I started doing my education there and I've moved on. I'm now doing women's studies, and it helps the young mothers with families, and I have groups for the over 60s, and all being well in the afternoon go to sewing class and things like that, and it helps the community too.
And what's the problem now? There's been cuts in funding, or there's a lack of funding for the women's sector?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
And tell me more about how you feel about that.
Well, I think it's terrible. They need them because, look at all the young mothers. Sure, they need that for if you're one parent family, you need it. So you do, and they need to come as well. You know how to go out somewhere.
And tell me more about the classes that you do.
Well, I used to do Maths and English, and then I done painting, and then I am doing sewing class, and I make my own clothes, and it's very good. And then I have you can get at the centre, the Windsor Women's Centre. You can get your all the aromatherapy, reflexology, and everything, and you can go in and get it, and or everything, or you can drop in.
I mean, at the moment with us ourselves, I'm not talking about for any of the rest of them, we have 40 children, over 100 families coming through our doors, and if we close down after the end of March, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? They come to us for free classes, free first aid, free stress management, basic food hygiene, anything to just G them up and get a wee bit of confidence. And then that enables them to go on and do some sort of computer courses and maybe even get jobs. Without that vital funding that pays for salaries, core costs, the centre won't be there. So those mothers will be at a total loss.
The protest is really about a cut in services which is being inflicted upon us now by a lack of long-term strategy with funding. We've been operating now for over a decade, and we've always had to go just from month to month really in terms of funding. We've never been able to really look beyond a year, and this was indicated to us that this would change with the new executive programme and the new task force report, and that actually hasn't brought about any change to us, any significant change. So we're now in a limbo situation once again where we don't know where money's coming to for the next year, and we're very anxious about it, and you can see the number of people that are out in the street with us today, and it's their services that are going to be affected by these cuts.
The letter that you're handing in to the DSD, Gillian, you're making a request about core funding. Can you tell me more about that?
Core funding is what is really required to keep the centres in operation, and that would be the costs of running the actual centre day to day. We would run a lot of projects which can be funded through different trust funds, but in terms of actually maintaining your building, heat, light, providing comfortable settings for people to meet in, those would be the core costs, plus the salaries of the people that really are there to run the centre and ensure that it's run at a quality level of service. So that's what we're really fighting for. Even if that level of funding was committed, it would make a huge difference to our work.
And Gillian, the government are doing consultation at the moment about their Gender Matters strategy, of which they've actually already produced an executive summary, but they are doing grassroots consultation. Do you think they're doing enough, or do they really know what's going on with women in Northern Ireland?
We've participated in the consultation through the Women's Support Network, and when you're taking part in a consultation, you go into it in good faith in the hope that the recommendations that arise from it are implemented. But we've taken part in so many consultations, and at the end of the day, we're not really seeing the evidence of what we're saying on the ground. So are they paying enough attention? I don't feel that they are at this time.
And Gillian, can you just outline to me the importance of footprints, for example, to the women who live in the area?
You can see that we've attracted up to 50 women here today at 2 days' notice. All of them would have families and commitments. They've managed to take themselves here today to demonstrate just how angry they are at the loss of services. So for these women it would be a huge difference. The loss would be a huge difference in terms of what the centre brings to them. The reality of that would be that we would have to face closure, and that is something that we face on a yearly basis. So it's not something new to us, but it just feels more imminent. We've always managed to turn it around because government, when they usually do get some understanding of what it is we're talking about, they do usually change their policies and respond, but it's usually at the last minute, and again this seems to be happening at the very last minute. We would find that since our assembly has gone, that we would find that the people that we're dealing with now at the moment would be out of touch, and this is what we're trying to do, is to wake them up and encourage them to realise that that what we've taken years to build up is in jeopardy of being lost, and we don't think that would be either good for the women or the current peace process.
I'm Education Officer at Windsor Women's Centre, and we provide educational courses and with childcare facilities and a lot of other essential services for women in a very disadvantaged area. And we're here to highlight the crisis in the funding situation and the government's lack of any coherent strategy for any provision for women's community education or women's services within Northern Ireland.
And sustainability is a big issue with funding, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And although we've been fortunate to secure some funding through DEL's European unit, we're in a very difficult position of trying to find match funding for that. So they will give us 60%, but we have to find 35%. And since Peace and Reconciliation money came into Northern Ireland, the major private charities withdrew from Northern Ireland. So we're in a terrible position of trying to find, although we can access some European money, we can't find the match funding to sustain it. So really it's not any benefit to us whatsoever. So we believe the government has a responsibility to support women's community education. I think figures would show that in women's centres across Northern Ireland, women's organisations, there are currently in excess of over 8,000 women accessing training and education opportunities. And so we're all dedicated to the advancement of women politically, socially, economically and personally. And
I mean, it's an essential part of the social fabric of Northern Ireland and of the times we live in now.
It absolutely is, and coming out of a post-conflict society, there are specific measures that need to be specifically targeted at those most marginalised and most disadvantaged, and in keeping with human rights. It's not just something that we want; it's something that's absolutely essential, crucial, and it is our right. And women are socially and economically disadvantaged. I think the government couldn't deliver its essential services without the likes of organisations like the Women's Centres, women's organisations, who secure funding and deliver vital public services, which are in keeping with the government's targets and policies, but the government doesn't fund for any of those services. We receive no statutory funding whatsoever for the services that we deliver, and we cater for the elderly in the area. We offer advice for all men and women within the area. We offer education, childcare, health, counselling, stress, help with debt, housing issues, everything.
And why do you think that women come to you or come to the Windsor Women's Centre? What is the main reason that they come?
They know that they'll be met with a sympathetic response, and that they will, if we can't help them ourselves, that we will do everything in our power to guide them to where they can find help. I think a lot of people don't know where to go to find help, or they have tried to access statutory and they're continuously turned away, and they just don't know where to go to for help. So I think they know that women's organisations like ourselves, of Footprints, or Shankle, Ballybean, Greenaway, that they will do their best.